What's up, fellas? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve and this is Tech Teardown. Today in this video I'll be going over the Intel i7-950. That is a 4-core 8-thread processor, very old first generation i7, and we're going to go over that and see how that performs today in 2019. For the i7-950, it came out in June of 2009. It wasn't the highest end of the i7s. They did still have 2 Extreme Editions and 1 i7 right above it, the i7-960, all of which had different multipliers and higher frequencies. The i7-950 has 130 watt TDP, a base clock of 3.06 gigahertz, and a boost clock of 3.33 gigahertz. In my test today, I will be running at stock settings, as the motherboard I have, an X58 motherboard, was not able to save or load any of my overclocking profiles with the 950 in it. So unfortunately, we'll be only testing this processor's performance at stock speeds. Typically, when I do a test like this, I do like to test its overclocking potential to see if it can gain any boosts in performance for these modern day games and programs that we'll be testing in this video. For my test bench, which you see here, this is the GeForce GTX 1070. It's being cooled by this Fantex cooler. And we also have Corsair Vengeance DDR3 RAM at 1600 megahertz. The X58 platform is one of the most fun platforms to play on, very legendary platform for PC enthusiasts. I've already tested a Xeon processor, the W3680, on this motherboard, and that performed adequately, as that's a 6-core 12-thread server processor. That bottlenecked the GTX 1070, so I went into testing this processor with the idea that the GTX 1070 was also going to be bottlenecked by the i7-950. So we're going to move on and go over the benchmarks that I have for this CPU. For these synthetic benchmarks, these are based off of a 3-run average. We're looking here at Cinebench R15, which we have a score of 491. And then moving on to Firestrike for our last synthetic benchmark, the CPU score was 7,803. The graphics score was 16,902, with an overall score of 11,378. All right, so moving on to gaming benchmarks, I have here is Tom Clancy's The Division 2, and this was tested at mostly high settings. We have average frame rate of 79.7, 1% lows at 49, and a 0.1% low of 42.8. Now we're looking at Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. We have an average frame rate of 69.8, with 1% lows at 57.2, and 0.1% lows at 56.2. Now we're looking at Far Cry 5. We have an average frame rate of 58.4, 1% lows at 43.2, and 0.1% lows at 39.5. Far Cry 5 was tested at high settings, and I also tested it at normal settings, and the frame rates were the same, which did show me that there was a bottleneck there. Now we're moving on to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and I have an average frame rate of 61, 1% lows of 31.1, 0.1% lows at 10.7. And moving on to Fortnite, we have average frame rates of 93.9, 1% lows of 37.1, and of course we have the really low 0.1% lows that we've come accustomed to in Fortnite at 7.2. And then finally, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, tested at high settings. We have an average frame rate of 111.6, 1% lows of 60.5, and 0.1% lows at 41.7. Alright guys, as you can see, the i7-950 performs rather adequately here in 2019 with a lot of modern day titles and some popular ones that have stood the test of time, like Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Definitely I would not be pairing that processor with the GTX 1070 like I did. Probably the highest end graphics card that I would pair with an i7-950 is an RX 570 4GB model, and that's probably about the highest I would go, as the average frame rates I was showing in performance was around 10 to 15% lower than the AMD Ryzen 3200G. The 3200G is also a 4-core processor, but it's 4 threads. and it comes in brand new at $100. I would definitely recommend something like that over the i7 950. You can get an i7 950 for roughly around $20 to $25 on eBay used. That's not factoring the cost of the X58 motherboards, which are not cheap. The cheapest price I could find, which was $90 to $100, I paid for my X58 motherboard, which is absolutely expensive for a platform this old, but they are in high demand. So I do not recommend going this platform. Just to wrap that up a little bit, with the i7 950, you're missing so many instructions that are on modern day architectures, such as the AVX2 instructions, which is very important here. I'm not going to recommend anything below 4th gen Intel just because of those missing instructions. And it's not to say that these processors from back in the day are not adequate performers. The 2500K is still one of the greatest processors to ever come out, but without those included instructions that you get with modern day processors, it's hard to recommend those processors, especially with still 2nd gen i7s and i5s are pretty expensive in my opinion for what you're getting. 3rd gen i7 still over $150 I've seen. 4th gen Intels, now those, you get the AVX2 instructions and they're great little CPUs, but they are also very expensive. So I don't ever recommend anyone going used Intel. With the price that you can buy a 4790K, you can go ahead and buy an i5 8600K or 9600K, and I would much rather you have that than an i7 4770 or 4790. All right, but I think that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. If you're new here, consider subscribing, like the video, let me know what you thought down in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future videos, also let me know. Love to hear from you. I appreciate all of your time watching my video, and I'll see you guys next time.